Hello. Today I will be reviewing Flight from the Dark by Joe Diver. Flight from the Dark is a novel published in 1984 that is part of the Lone Wolf series of Choose Your Own Adventure game books. This is the first book in that series. Without getting into any spoilers, the story of Lone Wolf follows the last surviving member of the Kai Lords, the Lone Wolf. The Kai Lords are a warrior monk order who are dedicated to protecting the kingdom of Summerland from the forces of darkness. The book opens with tragedy, as an attack upon their home leaves the Kai all but wiped out, plunging the Lone Wolf into a desperate fight for survival. As we move into my review of Flight from the Dark, we will be covering different key topics that I wanted to touch on, beginning with the world in Flight from the Dark, Magnamund. The world that Diver builds in Flight from the Dark is intriguing from the first page until the very last page. The creatures she creates, from the Doom Wolves to the Kron to the Burrow Crawlers, all have their place. They feel like they fit there. The organizations, clans, orders, like the Kai Lords or the Dark Lords, they all feel like they're supposed to be there. Magnamund is so intricately crafted that it feels less like a staging ground for the story of Lone Wolf and more like a world that could exist on its own. Now let's move on to the story in Flight from the Dark. The story in Lone Wolf has nice pacing. It's not slow from the get-go, but at the same time, it's not so fast that it feels overwhelming. As you're reading the book or playing the book, you can naturally learn about what's going on without being bogged down by too much exposition or being rushed into too much combat or encounters. Lone Wolf as a character is pretty much a blank slate, which makes sense considering the reader is Lone Wolf. The basic preliminary information we have about him really could fit with anybody. Each decision that you make feels really impactful to the story, and not just because death could be waiting around every corner, but because the story can go in so many different directions that it feels like anything is possible. It makes the stakes of the book feel real. Even after I've read it multiple times for this review, I still feel like there are paths that I have yet to explore, which means that the readability for this book is great. A lot of books are difficult to read more than once, especially in quick succession, but this novel overcomes that, at least partially due to the Choose Your Own Adventure game aspect that I will be discussing next. One of the most intriguing and unique things about Flight from the Dark is the role-play game, combat, choose-your-own-adventure aspect of the novel. The book combines elements from more common choose-your-own-adventure books and Dungeons & Dragons style combat encounters, which create a really cool and immersive experience for the reader. The game system that Diver created for Flight from the Dark is very reminiscent of Dungeons & Dragons. It relies on random numbers to determine the outcomes of combat encounters or decisions made throughout the story. When the reader begins, they will have to create a character sheet for Lone Wolf that determines the skills that they will have throughout the story, as well as their health and their ability to fight. On the first read through, the combat is a bit clunky. It's a little bit difficult to remember all the rules for the combat ratios or the random number generator, but it gets easier after a few encounters. My favorite part about the game that Diver put into Flight from the Dark is the fact that someone can use the same character with the same character sheet from book 1 all the way until the most recent book published. Not only can they use the same character, but they can level up the character. They can gain new skills, inventory slots, health. This not only makes the book that much more immersive, it also encourages readers to read further into the series, which, while I haven't done it, I would 100% encourage. While this style of game book might not be for everyone, I feel like it could be for anyone. The level of skill and work required to actually play the book isn't so much that it makes the experience of reading it any less relaxing or enjoyable. It just makes it more involved, which can be a turnoff for some, but for me and many others, it is what makes the books so fun to read. Before I end my review, I would like to discuss some of the illustrations in Flight from the Dark. Alongside the story, the art in the novel is incredible. Each drawing fit right in within the world that Diver had built. And personally, I really loved the almost nostalgic feel, this dark fantasy style that they had in the copy that I was reading. Some of the images that won't show too many spoilers that I saw while reading the novel are on screen currently, and I'm just going to allow them to flick through for a few moments while I wrap up this review. Overall, I feel like Flight from the Dark is one of, if not the best adventure game books I have ever read. I would 100% wholeheartedly recommend this book to anyone who wants to read it. In fact, in the description of this video, I have linked both the character sheet, the random number generator, and the charts related to that, as well as a link to a digital copy of the story so anyone who sees this can read it. I hope you enjoyed my video review of Flight from the Dark by Joe Diver. Goodbye.